Good evening, America and the world, and welcome to Real Fellas Talk Sports. I'm your host for this evening. My name is Larry Abels, and I'm joined by two great sports analysts. So let me introduce them. First, I'll start with our old neighborhood buddy, high school classmate, Charles Snowden. How you doing, Chuck?
Hey, Larry, it's Wednesday. You know how I feel about that. My favorite time of the week. We chop it up in sports. Plus, it's a little special week.
What makes it so special?
It's a little Indiana week, right? We got Michigan on Saturday. The college basketball team opens up tonight. So I'm all about those Hoosiers. I got my red and white on tonight.
Okay, and speaking of Indiana, we have one of Indianapolis' favorites, the loquacious David Burnett. How you doing, David?
Thank you for that loquacious introduction. Anyway, I'm here in Indianapolis where Taylor Swift and the Swifties really amp things up. She's the #1 NFL fan, and I'm glad that she is. Let's get busy.
Hello.
The #1 NFL fan, and what about Indianapolis' relationship with sports?
You know what it is. It's the sports capital of the world.
All right, let's get going. We'll start with the NFL, guys. Okay, this weekend coming up, we have Pittsburgh and Washington. Both teams have started off this season well. Only 2 losses through the first 9 weeks of the per team through the first 9 weeks of the season. Are they for real? And Chuck, who do you think will win that game?
Well, I like the Commanders to win the game. Yes, I think both are for real. I just like the execution of the Commanders. They don't make mistakes. They don't get penalties. They don't turn the ball over. They play what I call complementary football: offense, defense, special teams, and they're just well coached. They execute well. We picked up a DB, which was kind of our weakness group in the before the trade deadline. I like them. Now, don't get me wrong. Pittsburgh is well coached too, but I still like the Commanders.
Okay. David, what do you think about those two teams? Are they as good as their records indicate? And who do you think will win Sunday?
They're both very good. They're as good as their records indicate. I think Pittsburgh going to pull it out. I think they have the better coach, even though Washington has a very, very good coach. But what Washington does have is a cool, calm, and collected Jaden Daniels, outstanding quarterback. And Pittsburgh has resuscitated the career of Russell Wilson, who I wrote off just a couple of weeks ago. And that's a shame for me to have written off one of my favorite players. But he is coming back. I think it's going to be a great game. 7-2 is not a mirage for either team.
Okay. So look, we're halfway through the season, and I'm going to throw 3 teams out there that I think.
Hold on, Larry, before you go further. So Pittsburgh also added a player. I think they added the receiver from the Jets, Mike Williams.
So, how many Mike Williams has there been in the damn NFL? There must have been 10 wide receivers named Mike Williams over the years. I mean, it's incredible.
Name.
I was going to say there's a lot of them in the phone book too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they have somebody to go opposite of Pickens, so they got a good team as well. But I really like our offensive coordinator Kingsbury, even though we don't score lots and lots and lots of points, but we go 20-20. We're right there. We just can't punch that sucker in. I can't wait till that game. Should be pretty good. And by the way, Pittsburgh is 6-2. Washington is 7-2. Right.
Both of them have only lost 2 games.
Right.
So what I was about to say, I think we're halfway through the season, and in my view, 3 teams. I'll name 3 teams. You guys will have a chance to bring up other teams later. But Kansas City, Detroit, and Baltimore seem to be the cream of the crop. David, what is your opinion on each of those teams, and which of those 3 teams do you think is the best?
Kansas City, undefeated. Are they the best? I don't know. They're just undefeated. And whenever it's crunch time, whenever you've got to have a play, they seem to find a way to do it. And that's just extremely valuable. Detroit, they look like a juggernaut to me. Are they the best team? Let me save that for the next couple of minutes. Baltimore, firepower. Lamar is fantastic. He has to be in the argument for MVP again. But the most powerful team, I think, is the Detroit Lions. Even though they're not undefeated, Kansas City is. I think Detroit looks unstoppable right now.
Okay, thank you. Chuck, same question. Give me a brief analysis on Kansas City, Detroit, or Baltimore, and which of those teams do you think is the best team?
I think Baltimore is the most talented. I really do. You look at Henry and Zay Flowers, and of course the quarterback, Lamar, and the tight end, and they got two of them. And they've got playmakers on defense, Roquan in the middle. They've got Hamilton in the back. They too picked up a player this week as well prior to the deadline. I just think they're very talented. Now, why they have those games where they don't play as well, it's hard to explain. But I think they're the most talented. But I, like David, love Detroit. I love the culture. I love the effort. They're talented as hell too. And again, if I was right now, I think Detroit's the best team right now because Baltimore doesn't always play well. And of course, Kansas City is really, really good as well. They're undefeated. Those are the three to me. Those are the three. Now, people in Buffalo might not agree with you, but those are the three.
Well, to that point, I was going to ask you, are there any dark horse teams that you think might be able to challenge those teams?
Mm.
And it right comes to mind, like Buffalo. Chuck mentioned Philadelphia.
Philadelphia,
Washington.
Washington, Pittsburgh. We talked about them a second ago. I think those are a couple. Minnesota. I think a couple of those teams are.
You think they're on that level?
A legit. They're not on those levels, but they're a tier below.
Got you.
I would say Buffalo is one. Washington is another. The Rams are. Nobody's talking about the Rams. Now, I don't want to Trump speak. Nobody's talking. Look, people are talking about the Rams. The Rams are pretty good. Those are the teams, and Pittsburgh, of course, I think is a team to be reckoned with. Pittsburgh, Washington, the Rams, Buffalo. Those are the teams I see as potential dark horses that could usurp Kansas City, Detroit, and Baltimore.
Philly's very talented too, Larry, and you're right. They're talented. For some reason, I don't like their head coach at all. But they're playing better now. But I'll tell you, you mentioned the word dark horse. Let me tell you about a dark horse that no one's seeing right now, and kind of keep an eye on them.
Who's that?
Los Angeles Chargers.
Mm.
Keep an eye on them. They're 5-3. They're quiet. They've got a good head coach who likes to run and pound the ball. They've got a legit quarterback. They've got a good defense. Just if you're talking about dark horses, keep an eye on them. Somebody's got to come out of that division.
Well, the last time the Chargers won anything was 1960 or something like that. So I'll just leave it at that.
Well, they've got Harbaugh, and Harbaugh has been to a Super Bowl. So
yes, he has, and he's won a national championship.
He knows what he's doing.
He's a good quarter. He was a decent quarterback and a very good coach, college and pro.
He knows what he's doing. And they got pieces there. So keep an eye. I mean, since we're talking about dark horses, just keep an eye.
I think that's a good point. This league is really funny this year. I think it was like a record number of teams that have lost 6 games this year, but it's a whole bunch of them that are above 5. That they have pretty decent records with only 2 losses. And some of them that we mentioned. Give me your top 5, David, and just give me your top 5.
Okay, number 1, Detroit. Number 2, Kansas City. Number 3, Baltimore. Number 4, the Rams. Number 5, Pittsburgh.
Okay.
The Rams,
Chuck.
I like that. That's a new one. Rams. I like KC, Detroit, Baltimore, Buffalo, and Washington.
Whoa. So I noticed both of y'all left Philadelphia out of there. Interesting. Dallas Cowboys, are they done? Chuck.
Please. I told you that before the season started, they were done. They did nothing in the offseason. They lost their defensive coach and some other coaches on defense. They paid this guy $60 million, so they're locked in terms of their cap and so forth. They didn't add anything, and they got some injuries now too.
Yeah,
they got punched in the face the second week of the season by New Orleans, and New Orleans has since fired their coach. I told you, Dallas is garbage, and now we're seeing it.
David, I think he thinks they're done. Do you agree with him?
They've been done since
Exactly.
1995. They haven't. They haven't won anything.
They had their window where they 3 years they went 12-5.
And they lost.
And now the window's closed, and it's a mess.
They lost. I hold no hope for Dallas. Don't care, but they will still get an inordinate amount of attention unnecessarily. Oh, by the way, we got some visitors. Larry, check check your comments.
Thank you.
I heard something the other day about Dallas, or I read something. There it is. What's up, Gregory? Good evening, and thanks for joining us, big fella.
Thank you, and I apologize to everybody. I had something blocking the view. Thank you, David, for mentioning that.
JC,
no
Baltimore.
problem.
Oh, there it is. What's up, Lauren? Bills are a dark horse. So I heard something about Dallas. They said 40% of their payroll next year will be tied up in Dak and CeeDee Lamb, and they still got to sign Micah.
Well, can I comment on that?
I don't understand. I don't know what's going on there.
That's pro football. Every team worth its salt, whether it's Baltimore, whether it's the Jets, they pay the quarterback X amount of money. You got to pay the wide receivers. Every team has an imbalance. It's just the way it is. And you can't spread it around. If your quarterback was being paid $20 million instead of 50 or 60 million, that would suggest your quarterback is average or less than average. So, you're kind of in a catch-22
or a rookie.
But it just suggests that your quarterback is either a rookie or is just limited. And, nobody wants to have a limited quarterback. Number one quarterback in football, Patrick Mahomes, is making $45 million a year and is set to make about $70 million a year soon. Will Kansas City be any worse? No, they'll be good because they're good. Now I know that doesn't.
But everybody's not over the cap, David. There's some teams that are legitimate.
Well, but the fact is, we whine and complain about quarterbacks being paid and messing up the salary cap and all of that stuff. But that's the way it is. That's the way it is.
So you say that as if that's the law or something. I mean, when you say
Kansas City has won multiple Super Bowls with a guy making $40-some million a year, taking up an inordinate amount of the salary cap, and it hasn't hurt them. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying, let's hold your horses. Hold your horses before you knock this down. It's just the way the NFL works.
I think part of the problem with Dallas this year is first of all, Greg, Sharice, and Lauren, thank you for commenting. Well, I appreciate it. I think part of the problem is Dallas waited too long to pay their players, and they let other players get away when they, and they ended up paying them what they asked for. I don't know why they just didn't take care of their salary cap earlier. I don't know what their owner's thinking about. Maybe he needs to turn over the reins.
Well, maybe they didn't think that quarterback is worth this kind of money. They
did
eventually pay him.
He paid them and CeeDee Lamb what they asked for after the season started, and then they couldn't sign other players. They could have played them earlier. They would have known what their budget was and all of that. They ended up giving them the money, and now they're still in the same boat because both of them.
But before we get all excited about Dallas, the reality is Jerry Jones is about Jerry Jones and making money. The most valuable sports franchise in America are the Dallas Cowboys. So I don't know that he cares about winning a Super Bowl. He might give lip service to it. He's already got 3. It might have been 30 years ago, but he's got 3. He's making money hand over fist more than any other professional football team. And I think that's what he cares about.
I will give him, I do think he tries to put a decent product out there.
They're 12-5 the last 2 years.
I think he tries to do that, and I don't think he's going to like this. But this is what I want to do now. I want to move on to college football. And the first thing on my list, Charles Snowden. How good is Indiana? Undefeated at this point. What are they, 9-0?
Every game's been yes, they're 9-0, Larry, and thanks for mentioning them. They are, every game they've had is by double digits. They played Michigan State on Saturday. They spotted Michigan State 10-0. Michigan State was up 10-0 at their place at Michigan State. We ran 47 unanswered. and we get Michigan this weekend in Bloomington. And I've never seen this. And, I've been close to IU since the early 70s. We are a 14-point favorite against Michigan. That is crazy. I've never seen that. Now, the question is, will they be able to handle it? And I think they will. So, yes, they're legit.
David, Greg thinks they're very good, too.
Yes.
Indiana
David,
is great. Indiana is a great team. Yeah, the critics say you haven't played anybody. Look, Indiana has historically, and I know this will ding Chuck a little bit. Look, I'm cheering for Indiana, but I got to bring the facts. That's what I bring. I bring the facts. The fact is, Indiana, IU, Hoosiers football team is the -1 worst record of the all major college football teams in history. So 9-0, I don't care if it's against the Little Sisters of the Poor. Beat the hell out of those nuns. And look, 9-0 is 9-0. They've never been 9-0 ever. So right on IU, beat the hell out of Michigan, beat Ohio State the week after that, and then beat Oregon in the Big Ten championship. Purdue is an afterthought.
So, David, what about their quarterback, their wide receivers? Do you think they have the talent to really make some noise?
Yes. They have they're beating everybody by more than 2 touchdowns every single game. Yes, they are good enough at quarterback and at just about every position. But the position they're most outstanding is the coach.
I agree.
Curt Cignetti came in, completely transformed the program, brought in players from James Madison, where he was previously, where they were successful. IU, if they win, I'll be cheering like I was a grad, even though they didn't recruit me when I was in high school.
I knew Ball State had you locked up.
I'm sure they're really having second thoughts about that.
I've heard them talk about that's one of their biggest mistakes.
Chuck, on defense, how are they on the other side of the ball?
They're pretty good, Larry. They got this guy number 6 named Kamara. He's a defensive end, gets multiple sacks a game. He is a beast. They got a middle linebacker who's on the Butkus watch list as one of the best linebackers in the country. They got a guy in the secondary who last week had 2 interceptions. He's really good too. They're talking about he could be the Big Ten defensive player of the year. They are balanced. They're loaded. They're very well coached. David, right? Cignetti is doing a heck of a job. But they had the everything came together perfectly. Meaning with the NIL and the ability for players to move. He brought in 22 new players. The quarterback, O'Rourke, he's from Ohio University, not Ohio State. This is his 5th year. He's having a hell of a year at quarterback. So he is able to bring these guys together, put the culture in, great coaches. I mean, it's a pretty good deal. I gotta tell you, it's a pretty good deal.
So are they gonna? How many Big Ten games are they gonna win this year, Chuck?
All of them.
Whew,
they're gonna run the table. Like I said, they're a 14-point favorite for Saturday. Purdue, they're going to beat the hell out of Purdue. That's their last game. And the only other Big Ten game they have left, and it's going to be tough, it's Ohio State because it's in Columbus. But I think this is the year they get Ohio State.
David, how many Big Ten games do they win?
They're 6-0 in the Big Ten now. They're going to win 3 more. They're going to beat Purdue whatever.
Like stole something.
Well, they're going to beat Michigan. They better beat Michigan, and they will beat Ohio State. Keep this in mind. Even when they had the other coach, is it Tom Kelly?
It's Tom, but it's not Kelly. But you're right. I hear you.
They gave Ohio State fits in back-to-back years. I think they're better than Ohio State this year. I know Ohio State has the big horseshoe and all of the, pomp and circumstance that goes with being one of the great football programs in history. IU's better than them this year. I don't care who they've played.
But, David just makes a great point. And that's what concerns me just a little bit about Michigan. Michigan is not having a good year. I think they're 5-4 or something like that. but they're still Michigan, meaning they recruit, 4 stars and 5 stars and so forth. So I believe they have some talent on that team, and I just hope mentally we don't let that intimidate them, if that makes sense. What I'm
So
saying.
you said they were 14-point favorites?
Favorites.
Are they going to cover the spread?
I think so. They've been doing it every week.
This IU team just looks like we're going to beat everybody. That's the way they come across to me. And a coach that says I'm going to help take you there. I like that about them. I have not seen that from any IU coach in many a year.
Greg is right too. The Ohio State quarterback is not that good this year. Look, man, we beat Nebraska 56-7 this year. 2 weeks later, they played Ohio State. Ohio State beat them by 6. And Nebraska had the ball on the last drive. They just couldn't get it done.
So you think they'll beat Ohio State by that math, 40 by 40-something points?
Maybe that's the week we get Cornelius Green on the show right before that, and we'll see what he says about that as we go at it.
Okay, look, I was going to ask because I typed this up before the rankings came out. So I'm not going to ask you guys, do you think they'll make the playoffs? But how far do you think they can go in the playoffs? And David, I'll start with you.
I got the rankings, and I think Indiana can go very far, but it's important that they win the games in front of them. They've got to win against Michigan. The problem with IU is that they have their history working against them.
Right.
And you know how simple-minded people are.
Yep.
Simple-minded people will just equate IU's bad football history with this particular program. No, Indiana is really that good, but they've got to win to convince the doubters. So I think they can win. I think they can win out.
Okay, the purposes of my question is how far will they go in the playoffs? So both of you have told me they're going to win all of their games. I'm going to assume they make the playoffs. How far do they go, David?
I think, honest to God, I want IU to win everything. Damn it. I want them to win everything. I think they can win everything. Let me just step out on the limb, and when they win everything in February or whenever January, just remember that I said that on November 6th.
So when you said they're going to win out, you mean they're going to win out?
Everything.
Chuck, how far do you think they're going to
I'm trying to be a little cautious. I want us to beat Michigan in a couple of days, and then I'm going to worry about Ohio State. And then we could talk about how the tournament will lay out, because I think they could even get a home game and stuff like that in the first round.
They're going to have to beat Oregon in the Big Ten championship game for that to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
They still have that tournament too, don't they? The Big Ten.
And with college football, and Chuck, I'll start with you. Colorado's been playing pretty well lately.
They have.
Do you think they'll make the playoffs?
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
Because their schedule, they play Texas Tech this weekend. They're 6-3. Texas Tech is. Then they play Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State. I just think there's too many other teams ahead of them to get them in that tournament, right? Because I think they're going to take 4 at least from the SEC, 4 at least from the Big Ten.
At least 4 more.
Yeah, I don't think Colorado's going to make the cut, unfortunately. Remember, BYU is ahead of them in that conference, and Iowa State is ahead of them in that conference.
Well, what's got to happen, though, is for Colorado to get into the tournament, they have to win the Big 12 championship game. This is that simple. There's no other formula for Colorado to get in. If they win the Big 12 championship, they're going to be in the playoffs. That's the route.
What's up, Kung Fu?
What's up, Kung Fu? How you doing?
Kung Fu.
And it's because their name is Alabama. That's the only reason.
Okay. Couple of questions. Is it possible 2 conferences will have, or is it likely 2 conferences will have 2 teams, 2 separate conferences will have 2 teams in the Final Four of the playoffs, i.e. the Big Ten and the SEC, each having 2 teams? Possible?
It's hard for me to see that far out. Yes, it's possible. I mean, Oregon is in that thing, and then Georgia and Texas and are in the other one. So yes, it's possible. It's just hard for me yet to look that far down the road. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What do you think, David?
It's all set up. If you look at it for real, behind the scenes, the cartel, Big Ten, SEC, of course, it'll be 2 teams from the SEC and 2 teams from the Big Ten. That's the way they would like it to be. You know what I'd like to see? 1 team from the Big Ten in there, Indiana, against Boise State. That'll show them.
Is it possible that one conference can have 3 teams in there, David?
Yes.
Likely?
Yes.
Likely?
Big Ten and SEC either and or both will have at least 3 teams in the tournament.
I'm sorry, I meant 3 teams out of the Final 4.
In the Final 4, that's possible, depending on how they set everything up. It's possible.
What do you
think? Who do you think I am, Paul Feinbaum? I haven't been able to see that far down the road, Larry.
I just thought I'd ask you anyway. But speaking of seeing far, maybe since we're this far in the season, Chuck, do you have a Heisman Trophy candidate?
Well, that's a very good question. I think it's going to come down to these 3. I think it's going to come down to Travis from Colorado, Travis Hunter, who plays both ways, about 120 snaps a game. I think Cam Ward, the quarterback from Miami, is in the mix. And David, you'll help me with his name, but the running back from Boise State, I think it's Janae or something of that nature. I think those 3 are the front runners for the Heisman.
Those are the same 3 that I have as well. But let me just put this out. If Travis Hunter is not the Heisman Trophy winner, they need to get rid of the damn trophy in the first place. I'm tired of the Heisman Trophy as it is. Y'all know how I feel about it. It's a bogus award because they don't give it to the best football player every year. But Travis Hunter is the best football player in ages. And if he doesn't get the Heisman Trophy, there should be no award.
If this play doesn't fall off or he doesn't get hurt in these next 4 or 5 games or 3 or 4 games, I agree 100% with David. This is that year.
He has to get it.
Okay, so we're going to pivot away from college football to the NBA. 1/10 of the way through the season practically. I know that time flies, but we got in the East as of today. Cleveland starts 8-0. Boston starts 7-1. One or both of these teams real, or is one real and one fiction? Or are they both fiction? Chuck, I'll start with you.
They're both real. I agree with you, Greg, about Hunter. They're both real. Look, Kenny Atkins, if Kyrie had not pulled his "I want my coach" for the Brooklyn Nets, Kenny Atkins was going to be the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets with those people, and it would have been interesting to see how that works out. Kenny Atkins is a pretty good coach, for real, and he's got the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's got Mobley playing great. Of course, Garland and the other guard from Louisville, I forgot his name. They whatever differences they might have had last year, because it looked like there was some friction for the 2 of them playing together. Garland and that guy, what's his name, Larry? The guard.
Well, I thought you were talking about Spider.
Yes, Spider. So okay. Garland and Spider are playing great together this year. Mobley's playing well. They got a good team. So if they can stay healthy, they got a LeVert coming off the bench. If he can stay healthy, Cleveland. That's right, Greg. They just can't. Historically, they haven't been able to stay healthy.
David,
they're legit.
Cleveland will do fine until they get beat by Boston. And Boston is playing out of their mind. They're shooting 3-pointers at a record rate and hitting them. Tatum has a lot to prove. He's got an agenda and a fair one. So does his running buddy Brown. I don't see anybody stopping Boston. I'd love it to be my Pacers, but I think Boston is they may challenge the NBA record for wins, which is 73 by the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah,
they could win 75 games.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a prediction. Now let's look at the bottom of the standings. Milwaukee starts 1-6. Philadelphia starts 1-5. Are you concerned about either of those teams, David? One of those teams or neither?
I'm concerned about neither one of those teams. Milwaukee, Philly, hell with them. I want my Pacers in their place.
Okay, let me phrase the question. Do you think that they're going to stay down at the bottom? I didn't mean you personally. Should people that watch it feel like these teams their doors are closed on them, or are they?
Milwaukee will get better, but they have Doc Rivers as a head coach. Philly, they got Embiid as a centerpiece and Paul George. No, they're not coming up. They're not going to be horrible, but they're not going to be what the money pays for. No.
What do you think of those two teams, Chuck?
I think if they're healthy, those Philadelphia, if they're healthy in April and May, they'll be in the. I don't care where they stay. If they just make the playoff, I don't care where they are in that ranking. They'll be somebody that have to be dealt with. Milwaukee, I think they're done. I think Milwaukee, in fact, you hear rumors now that they might move Giannis to a team like Miami.
That the rumors come from the media.
Well, I don't know where they come. I don't know where they come from.
They don't come from Giannis because he's got to protect his
I'm
brother.
I'm not saying Giannis started the rumor.
Yeah, the rumor's out there. Giannis for Embiid. I've heard that one.
Of course you've heard it because people like us, talking heads, are saying it, but that's not real. Keep in mind, Giannis has a brother who needs a team to play on, or at least to sit on, and the only team willing to pay his brother is Milwaukee, and his family lives in Milwaukee, so he ain't going nowhere.
Okay, may not be up there. Hey, look, speaking of Embiid, last week he got into an altercation with a writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer, Mark Haynes. Now, Haynes stated in his article, Embiid often says he wants to be great and leave a legacy for the boy named after his little brother, who tragically died in a car accident when Embiid was in his first year at the Sixers. Well, in order to be great at your job, first you have to show up and work for it. Embiid has been great at just the opposite. Embiid gets upset about that. Chuck, did the reporter cross the line, bringing his family in there? Could he have made his point differently, or how do you feel about it?
Okay, so first, I think he did cross the line, the writer, but I think Embiid really crossed the line when you can't put your hands on Embiid. You can't put your hands on anybody. But I did think the writer crossed the line. I'll say this about Embiid too. If you watched Embiid in those playoffs against the Knicks last year, he gave everything he had on one leg. He played his ass off. So I guess I'm not one that whoops on him, although I know he doesn't play a lot because his body doesn't seem to hold up. But he played his guts out in that series against the Knicks last year.
David, as a reporter, did he cross the line?
I would not have brought in anything about the man's son or anything like that. No. You stay away from that. Did the reporter / columnist, because it's a column, he offered his opinion. Did he deserve to be assaulted? Because it's an assault. No. Embiid, I think he's concerned about the fact that people are talking about the fact that he's on the bench again, that the columnist hit a sore spot. You want to say it's about a dead brother, a son. Look, you're concerned about the fact that you're not playing and people are paying attention to that. And you just signed a contract, the richest contract in NBA history. Look, play and shut up.
You answered my next question because I was going to ask you, do you think, obviously Embiid was upset. I was going to ask you guys, do you think it was upset because of the words he said, or was he already upset and just was it a good trigger that he can use?
They've been criticizing Embiid since he's been in Philadelphia. Even back in Kansas, he didn't play then too. So he's always been subject to criticism. I just think you go too far when you start talking about a dead son. I just think, or nephew,
his brother,
son, nephew. I just don't think that's cool. I don't think that's cool at all. I really don't.
It's bad. It's Philly. They laugh at Santa Claus. They boo Santa Claus. That's the way Philly is. It can be a cheap city. But no.
I think the criticism is he has to accept that. But I thought the writer could have made his point without invoking.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're saying both are wrong. We're saying the writer was wrong.
Yeah.
But Embiid was really wrong. You cannot touch. I don't care what it is. You cannot touch it. That has nothing to do with basketball. You just can't be touching other people.
And the fact is, what made it worse and probably gave him the 3-game suspension, he issued a threat beyond that.
Say keep it. Yeah, don't do it again, or don't
do it again. And I don't care about the consequences. Right. Well, the consequences is you can take your out of shape butt out of the league.
Better watch out, David. Watch out, David. They play the Pacers this year. You might be there.
You know what? I'm ready.
Is the penalty just the 3-game suspension you think is appropriate? Yes. Chuck, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, I'm sure that the collective bargaining agreement and the union and the owner and everybody got together, and I guess that's fair. I just, at the end of the day, you can't be putting your hands on people, man.
No.
You just can't. You just can't. But I'm telling you, if you're paying me $60-some million a year, do I care about some money? I think that's part of it.
You know he's going to lose over $1 million for those 3 games.
Oh, wow. He makes $60 million. He makes $60 million in salary. Who knows what he makes, outside of salary?
But I mean, that's $1 million over 3 games is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Okay, let's continue our pivot to the WNBA. And, we're going to wrap it up after this subject.
David doesn't like to talk about the WNBA much, Larry. So,
well, I'm going to ask him about it because offline, he was telling me I was shocked. Actually, was shocked when both of these coaches were fired because they both did a great job last year. And David had an inside scoop. So, David, why don't you tell us what happened? Why did the team with the 3rd best record that may get fired and another team that went from the bottom of the league up to about the 6th place? Why did they both get fired?
Because it's a new WNBA. We're not doing things the way we used to do them. The profile is really high now, and the expectations are much higher. These young ladies are not in obscurity anymore. You have to bring the best out. And Stephanie White, former Fever player, former Fever assistant coach, former Fever head coach, has distinguished herself. Perfect. She's a Hoosier, born and raised in the state of Indiana. Perfect coach. And by the way, the Fever made more money than any WNBA team in the history of the league this year. There's a championship that's expected. So
I should have set this up a little differently because for people that don't know, Stephanie White was the coach of the Connecticut Sun, who had a great season last week. I was talking to David about the Fever's coach. I can't remember her name. Sides?
Christy Sides.
Sides, yeah, who I thought did a wonderful job after a slow start and turned that team around and got as much out of them. From my view, I thought they both did good jobs. David had the inside scoop. He told me what was going to happen, and I just couldn't believe it. Chuck, what do you think about all the firings? And there's about 7 coaches that got fired this year.
7 out of 12.
So say, David.
Yes, sir.
I think Larry didn't see the second part of the show last week.
He was gone.
I know. So we covered this last week. So I too was wondering why 7 of the 12 coaches have been changing. And it's because the league is changing. And they want to put the right people in place, the real professionals. And by the way, I guess if you think about it, when Magic and Bird and Michael Jordan, they did the same thing when they, Magic didn't like Westhead. He made a change. They put Riley in there, etc. I think Collins didn't really work out. They put Phil Jackson in. So I guess that's even happened to the men.
These coaches were working out.
Paul Westhead and the Lakers won.
But they were working out at a lower level.
Paul Westhead and the NBA won the championship when Magic got rid of him. They won the championship. So they were working out. You see what I'm saying? So I guess the star gets the. I don't know.
But
it is
You
a
think
little.
Caitlin Clark was behind it? You think Caitlin Clark was behind it?
No, hell
Okay.
no.
Well, I heard you say I think the star gets to.
well,
Because we're
in
not
this
just talking about one team. We're talking about
7 out of
teams.
12.
Right.
7 out of 12. They're just trying to transform the league and position themselves. Like Teresa Weatherspoon, head coach of the Chicago team, it's pitiful. She had to go. She deferred everything to Angel Reese. And that's ridiculous. She wasn't coaching. She was trying to please one player. She had to go.
How do you really feel, Greg? So here's the thing. They even said that Cheryl Miller was going to get one of these head coaching jobs, but she didn't, did she?
She ain't
Have
ready
they
to
filled
be
them
a head-
all?
No, they haven't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
so-
there you go. Maybe
She could, but
maybe she still
I
will.
think she's too old. And
Okay.
I'm sorry about ageism because she's not as old as I am.
Yeah, she's not too old. What are you talking about? Hey, look, that's all I have today. So, do we have any closing comments? And David, I'll start with you.
I have a closing comment about a player who nobody, I'm trumping again, who nobody gave a hoot about and thought he would be a bum and a big stiff. That big stiff who was a freshman at Purdue is handling his business in the NBA. Zach Edey, 7'4", hitting three-pointers. He didn't hit a damn three-pointer at Purdue, and he's shooting from further distance in the NBA. He's going to be a terror in a couple of years. He's one player, unlike those who don't pay attention. He's gotten better every single year. He will continue to improve. He's not going to stand pat. He will get better. So those of you who thought Zach Edey was just a big stiff and wasn't going to make it in the NBA, you're wrong. 25, 12, 4 blocks. That was a stat line just the other day. He's going to be just fine. Anyway, that's my closing comment.
You know what else is good? Jump onto that. He and Jaw seems to know how to find him because Jaw gets double, triple team. I've seen him throw a few nice alley oops to him, and when Jaw is going, he's definitely around the rim, and it'll look good for Edey. All he has to do is keep playing.
They show him. I guess they got rituals for rookies. They showed Zach doing the Dougie, and quite frankly, he did okay for a 7-footer in terms of doing the dance.
He played soccer. He's got footwork.
Chuck, you got a closing statement?
You know what? I'm so excited about the Hoosiers. I didn't spend any time on my closing comments, so I don't have one this week except for go Hoosiers.
And you got your candy stripes on.
I sure do. Can't wait.
Yeah, man. All right.
Okay, my closing comments is going to be a non-sports comment. I just want to say a melancholy farewell to one of the greatest musicians of all time, Quincy Jones, who passed away. I think it was Sunday night or early Sunday morning. He's someone that, broke barriers. He said, why couldn't a black man do scores for TV shows? And he did pretty much what he wanted to do. He played with every artist you could imagine, and everything he touched seemed to turn to gold. Rest in peace, my friend. Well, my
Amen.
friend.
Amen.
Sinatra even worked with old Blue Eyes.
Amen.
Well, hey, David, what's his line, David? What's his line?
Check your ego at the door. I love that. We are the world. You don't come in here. You are just a singer. Check your ego. And those guys did.
Peace, Q.
Yes, indeed.
Peace.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And we appreciate you tuning in, your comments. And we'll see you next week at 7 o'clock on Will Fellas Talk Sports.
Go Commanders, go Hoosiers. Good job, Larry. Good job, David.